All right, let's get started here. So, happy Friday, everyone. Anyone who's watching today. Um, so the plan is today I'm going to dig into a few different things. I'm going to experiment with interacting with uh, ArLocal, which I'll explain what that is, using the Arweave JS. I guess I could move off my stream page here. Um, Using the Arweave JS library. I'm going to do all that from the Clojure REPL, or Clojure script REPL, I should say. So, in reflecting on these videos, it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of amusing to me that like if you're trying to learn how to build on top of Arweave, this has actually been a really bad resource, and that reflects my view of where the challenges lie in building a distributed mining pool. Like the challenge isn't actually the interaction with Arweave, it's making tools really usable, having a really good release process, those kinds of things. So that's where I've been focusing a lot of my attention. However, it doesn't really help you a lot if you're coming to these videos hoping to find things that will instruct you in terms of how to build on top of Arweave. So uh, I'm gonna I'm going to try to make amends for that here and actually spend a little bit of time on that. It also happens to coincidentally line up pretty well with things I'm starting to get to in terms of the distributed mining pool implementation. So should explain a little bit more about the context here, especially for people who are less familiar with Arweave. So actually, I should get Arweave has a couple APIs that are worth knowing about. We're going to focus on, well, I guess we'll hit both of them actually. So it has, oh, I should double check my audio too. Yeah, that looks fine. Cool. Bloop. Yep, yep. Okay, so there's kind of two main interfaces that you might use with interacting with Arweave. People are building new things all the time, so if you're coming to this video a few months from now, there's probably more interfaces that are springing up in the community. But the two main ones you want to start with are there's the HTTP API and then the GraphQL API. A while back, let's see, is it still in here even? A while back, there was this sort of query language, this custom query language on top of Arweave called, I think it was ARQL or something like that. If you see references to that, that's really old. Don't use it. You should basically just be using the sort of vanilla HTTP API for getting, yeah, the, uh, yeah, this page. Sorry, let me finish my thought. You should be using the vanilla HTTP API for grabbing things like transactions blocks, or the GraphQL API if you want to do queries. And unfortunately, this page too with the HTTP API, I think it has some really big, yeah, some really large amounts of data embedded in the examples, probably because they have actual blocks in here that are part of the proof of access. So this page is really large and sometimes it gets wonky, at least for me. I don't know if others have that problem. But anyway, this is the HTTP API. I'm not going to focus too much on that. But you can do things like get transactions by IDs. Yeah, sure, wait. Um, get blocks, get wallet balances, those kinds of things, and upload data, of course, which is important. Um, I'm gonna go ahead and close this because I don't think we'll spend a lot of time on this page, and it likes to kill my browser. The other one you should be aware of is, I hope they have some examples here too. Well, we'll find out as we get into it. Yeah, okay, they do. So if you're building an application on top of Arweave, you're of course going to want to upload data most likely, and that's important. But that will go through Arweave JS, and you won't have to know a lot about the details of the API for that. But you'll also want to query data, and Arweave has a sort of database structure built on top of it that's exposed through GraphQL, and that's what this page here describes. And I think, see if you go to, do I have that open already? Yeah, the Arweave JS is the main JavaScript library for interacting with Arweave. And if you scroll all the way to the bottom, they'll mention, yeah, it is called ARQL. They'll mention ARQL here, and point you to, oh, no, you should use GQL instead, GraphQL. So yeah, don't pay attention to this. Follow this link, and it takes you to the page I was just on, which is this GraphQL Arweave guide. So what kinds of things can you do? You can get, just normal transaction data out of here, and transactions by IDs. I'll talk about tags in just a minute. You can get block, metadata, payment data. The stuff you'd expect to be able to query on top of a blockchain. It's here. The basic primitive that is most important if you're building an application is these tags. So tags are a way, it's pretty much what you would think. You can associate name value pairs with data that you're uploading, or transactions that you're uploading, I should say. So these might describe things like, what's a good example? Like you might have a user ID tagged on here, or well, maybe we can find some examples actually. So there's various applications built on top of Arweave right now. One of them, which is super cool, is Arweave, which is basically, I don't want to sell it short by saying this, but just by way of analogy, it's like a Google Drive or Dropbox or something like that, but on top of Arweave, which means you pay once and store forever. But they have a whole file system implemented on top of Arweave. And all the metadata for that file system is basically in the tag data. So let's just go see view block. Let's see if we can find some interesting transactions real quick. Oh, I should leave Twitter open just in case. Get notifications. Okay. Yeah, so let's take a look. Maybe we can find some good examples. Yeah. Actually, this will be really interesting. Ooh, Arweave stats. It's fun just to splunk around here and see. Yeah, very interesting. Here we go. Yeah, okay. So Arweave accounts for a lot of the traffic on Arweave right now. I think they're like 20% plus of the total data volume too is from Arweave. So it's a very important part of the Arweave ecosystem. So yeah, here are the tags. I'm looking at a transaction. From the transaction, I could go look at the block where you'll see a bunch of other transactions because blocks contain a list of transactions. And if we look at the tags here, you can see we have content type. It's similar to the HTTP header. We have a cipher. So I guess this is someone's encrypted data, which is cool. Cipher IV. Not sure what the IV is for, but anyway, more about the encryption. Application name, application version, and some of these tags too. Like there's no requirement, but some of these are things that you should probably follow yourself if you're building an application. So we have app name, app version, Unix time of when this was created, presumably, the version of the RFS, which is the sort of standard file system that Arweave implements. Then we have a drive ID, we have a parent folder ID, and then we have a file ID. And I assume these are all hashes, but I'm not completely sure. They're either, actually, let's look at them. Could be UIDs. If they're UIDs, they should be doing hashes too, so they can content address everything. But anyway, they're IDs for the various things in Arweave. And so if you take this, you can query based on it and build up this whole tree within your application of a file system. And you can imagine, any number of other ways that you could use tags for an application. The important thing to know, though, is that the data in a transaction, well, I'm going to say this, it's not completely true, but the data in a transaction is not indexed. The tags are. So the tags you can query, the data you can't really query. There's nuance to that. You can do bundles and things like that, but don't want to get into that. For simplicity's sake, we're just going to go with that the tags are indexed, but the data is not. Over time, I kind of expect this whole area to explode, and there to be lots of ways to index things because there's no universally optimal way to index everything. So, I think what the Arweave team has put together with the way they're indexing tags is very good general purpose indexing, but there's going to be other indexings because there's just no universally optimal way to index all your data. Okay, so I hope that gives a little bit of lays a little bit of the groundwork here for what we're looking at. Within that context, so one thing you'll want to do when you start building on top of, I should have installed this already. I did not, but anyway, one thing you'll want to do when building on top of Arweave is testing, and it's totally fine to just go out there and test on the network. No problem, you can do that. It's the amount that you're going to pay in Arweave tokens is pretty small for the amount of data you're probably going to be putting out there. But if you're anything like me, that still makes you slightly uncomfortable testing on the live network. Like, I think it's fine, and some people just do that. And if you're comfortable with that and it works for you, like, go for it. I would rather have a test stub, and I think beyond just the comfort, there's some reasons you might want to have a test stub. One of them is like automated testing. If you're doing a lot of automated testing, clearly that is going to be a problem. I mean, if nothing else, it's going to be a problem eventually in terms of transaction volume on top of Arweave. So for automated testing, you probably want a test stub of some sort. And one of them, I think there's a few of them out there in the ecosystem, but one of them I came across not too long ago is ArLocal. I did not create this. This is from Cedric, who I think he was on the Arweave team. I'm not sure if he's still on the Arweave team, but anyway, he's certainly very active in the Arweave community, whatever his current affiliation is. And yeah, so it's basically like a little simulator for Arweave where you can interact with it like you would Arweave, but you're not spending real AR on the network. And I believe the way it works, I haven't dug into it in too great a depth yet, but I think it's just like a little SQLite database in there that's simulating everything that would happen on Arweave. And I should say too, I think the status of this is it implements enough to test a bunch of different things, but it's not complete. Like the interface it provides is not complete. So, it says right here, pull requests are greatly appreciated. So if you're using this thing, you find gaps, feel free to contribute. I think the whole community could benefit from this. Okay, so I think that's enough context. Let's go ahead and start running this thing. So let's see. I do have Node.js. I do have npm. Simple as doing npx. So let's try it. So the context in which I'm going to do this is the engine repository here, and the engine is basically like, if you think of the mining pool, there's the miner, there's sort of the packaging around the miner and the Dockerization, all that stuff, and there's things that either would be like an interface somewhere too for interacting with it. The engine is the part that sits next to the miner and does things like pulling out the partial proofs of work, putting them on Arweave, and then on the other side it would be the one thing that tallies them up. So it has a few different roles, but it's all in one code base, and so that's kind of what the engine is. And so that's the part that I'm implementing that really needs to interact with Arweave, and the interactions it does are actually going to be quite trivial, but you still need to test them, and we'll see how that works. Okay, so let's do this. Probably should have done this ahead of time, but so hopefully I don't have any roadblocks here. If not, you can learn with me and we'll debug them. Wow, it's going to download like half the universe of npm here. Okay, cool. So we are running it. Yeah, that's fine. Let's go with that. Okay, so we do external engine. So we'll open up another one here. Okay, so we have ArLocal running. I wonder. Yeah. Just wondering if they created any files here. I'm not sure where it's actually putting its state. Interesting. 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 Okay. Well, I don't know actually where it's putting its state. I don't think that's worth tracking down though. Maybe I'll come back to that later on. Okay, here we go. DB path. So I wonder. Okay, so it's not there. Interesting. Let's just look through the code. I say I'm not going to track something down, and then I track it down. I think I've done that a few times here. Okay, DB path. What do we default to? Network DB? Do I have? Yeah. Interesting. Well, okay. Yeah, I'm not going to worry about it. Presumably, although it's possible I haven't written it yet too because I haven't interacted with it. Well, whatever. It puts the database somewhere. Yeah, so that's just going to run. Well, we'll go with that. I think ultimately this is what I want. So I think you can just pull it into your project and then use it within your project to do stuff. That's probably where I want to go, but we'll go with this for the moment. Okay, so yeah, the file I'm in here, this is all ClojureScript, because as stated before, ClojureScript is awesome, still is awesome. Okay, so this is implementing an interface that is a proof store. It's not really complete right now. I need to add some stuff to it. So, but basically, I want to define a protocol which is similar to TypeScript has interfaces. Pretty sure TypeScript. Yeah, TypeScript has interfaces. Java certainly has interfaces. That's where the notion of protocol comes from. So it's basically a specification for. It's hard to define protocol without saying protocol. It's a specification for a collection of methods that define an interface to something, and you can implement the interface on top of anything, and you can combine multiple protocols together. So it's just a nice polymorphic structure that doesn't require that you actually have, like, it doesn't really say anything about the type of thing that's implementing it. So anyway, I want to define everything in this project in terms of interfaces because then you can have different implementations of the interface. So one implementation of this interface would be backed by Arweave, but I might have, like you can see, the only implementation I actually have right now is just the in-memory implementation for testing, which is a really nice way to start because then you can iterate on things quickly. You don't have to interact with the real system. But I'm getting to the point now where to move to the next step in the project, I really need to start implementing real implementations. So I have two in mind. I think I'm going to implement one on top of S3 actually because I want to be able to run this kind of in a more controlled way without putting stuff on Arweave publicly. But I also want to be able to put things on Arweave publicly. And so then you have options about how you run this thing. And I suppose if someone wanted to, they could end up taking this whole thing and implementing a kind of centralized pool running on top of S3 or something. I don't know why you would particularly want to do that, but you could. I have to think through the incentive structure there. I don't know if everything works in that context. Probably would. It's just a lot less transparent because someone can go in and alter alter the data in S3. So ultimately, it doesn't align with my goals, but it's still going to be, I think, quite useful for testing purposes. Okay, So what we want to do here is pull in the Arweave library. So I did add a node module for Arweave already, so I pulled that in. So if I connect to my REPL, okay, takes just a second. Okay, so there we have REPL. Just evaluate the buffer. Make sure everything loads as is. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to require Arweave. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so yeah, if you're familiar with JavaScript, ClojureScript, you know this is basically doing like an import or require. Their ClojureScript has a really nice interop with JavaScript, which I don't think I'll go through right now, but it's described here. Actually, this might not be the best description, but anyway, you can require node modules in ClojureScript as if they were ClojureScript modules. So let's go ahead and pull in some example code here. Okay, so Arweave init. All right, so init the Arweave. Sorry for the slight pauses here. I think I'm getting some allergies. And I'm muting so you don't have to hear me clear my throat. Okay, so just Lisp style, you know, the method comes first and the object comes second. So we'll do Arweave init. We got to do a little JS because this is JS interface. It's going to expect JS into it. And yeah, so it should be host, localhost. Probably, I don't know if I have to specify all of those. I would guess I could leave some of these out and have them be the defaults. Protocol, HTTP. Oops, getting a little JavaScript into my closure. Wrong quotes. Okay, yeah, so I should do this. I'll just call this, oops, let's call this A, I think, in my, I think if I was doing this in the code up here, I would probably end up calling it Arweave because once you've initted things, you don't really care that you're shadowing the namespace. Because like if I called it Arweave here, then it would be ambiguous in subsequent calls. Well, it wouldn't be ambiguous. I wouldn't be able to refer to the Arweave namespace anymore. I would just be able to refer to the Arweave var. So we'll just do it as a def of A. Yeah. If I were doing that elsewhere in the code, I wouldn't care because I think I'd probably just want to instantiate Arweave once, and after that, I really wouldn't care that the variable was shadowed. I also would not be shadowing it at the top level. I'd do it within a component. Okay, so that will init our Arweave object. Let me evaluate that. Then, okay, so let's get Arweave object there. Let's go look. Yeah, so let's try to do some stuff with it. So in theory, we're now connected to our ArLocal thing here, and we should be able to submit some data to it. So yeah, let's create a transaction. Ooh, I might have to pull in my key too. I think the easy way to do that So yeah, word of advice too. If you're when you're interacting with Arweave, always use a development key that's not. Yeah, I think I'll just do this. Well, what's the? I should have figured this out in advance. Read file. Just want a Node.js synchronous read. Sync file read sync. Oh, okay, it's at the end. Read. Let's put up read file sync. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we can do that. Okay, so JS is just the prefix you use for referring to JavaScript things from ClojureScript. Otherwise, it would interpret this as like a ClojureScript bar. So, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this. Require fs. So, I'm gonna do read file sync fs, and what is our key here? Oop. Yep. Okay, cool. So it looks like we read it in successfully. Okay, back to our Arweave examples. So, I guess I could have generated a key too. That would be fine also for our purposes. Although I don't know how long that takes. So whatever, I'll use my dev key. It's got nothing attached to it. So yeah, always use a dev key because you you just never know when you're accidentally going to interact with Arweave instead of whatever you think you're interacting with, or you fat finger some number and you're just sending more AR around than you want to. So yeah. Okay, let's create a transaction and see what happens. So we'll do def txa, and I'm going to do, oh, we should pull in, okay, yes, yeah. So let me have this here. Yes, I'm just pulling in a little bit of few namespaces to make interacting with promises marginally easier. Okay. Actually, I don't know if that's, well, whatever. Let's just create the transaction. Create transaction Arweave, and then give it the key. Oh no, data comes next. Oh, okay, so we do JS and pass it some data. Ultimately, I want to have a little ClojureScript wrapper that just lets me give it data and it creates the transaction. But for now, we'll just wing it interacting with Arweave.js. Okay. Yeah, okay. So let's say put some hello world data in here. Uh-oh. Keys are being replaced by key already refers to closure core key. Oh, create transaction. It's not a function. Really? Oh, that's because I'm calling it on Arweave. I need to call it on my instance of Arweave. Yeah, I am shadowing a closure. Well, I don't think we'll need that closure core. The key is also a core function in closure, so I probably should have called that K, but we'll go with it since I already defed it. Okay, so now we have our transaction, which is a promise. So let's call this TXAP, and let's do then TXAP, and this is really hackish, but just for interacting. Def TXA should. Yep. So I'm just defing another var inside the promise, which I think worked. That's absolutely not what you would do. I would probably be using this core async stuff to make some synchronous looking code if I was implementing this within a method somewhere, but method or function, whatever you want to call it. But for interacting with the REPL, this is a very expedient thing to do. So we just, in our then, I'm just defing another var at the top level, and then we can interact with that. Okay, so we should be able to create a wallet-to-wallet transaction, add tags to a transaction, sign the transaction. Which I think is you execute this, and then there's a side effect that gets executed on the transaction. So let's do that. So let's do .sign txa. Oh, I see. So it's interesting. Arweave. Interesting. Okay, so it's transactions.sign Arweave. Wonder why it's structured that way. I'm not sure. So txa, and give it our key. Okay. Don't know about that, Arweave. Well, actually, let's do cannot read property sign of undefined. Oh, I think it's because it's a plural. It's plural, yeah. Okay. So this should be really? Dot. Oh, I bet it's, yeah. Let me try this. Oh. I'm doing it again. I gotta use the instance instead of the. Okay. So shouldn't really need to do this, but whatever. Doesn't really matter. I don't think there's anything that needs to happen in the then, because all they're doing here is just waiting for it. They're just waiting for it to complete. They're not actually doing anything with the return value. So I don't think that's actually necessary, but just following the example. You can see that I actually haven't interacted with Arweave a lot from ClojureScript yet. Again, most of my effort has gone into like command line tooling and stuff like that. So it's fun to start digging into this stuff a little more. Okay. Oh, no, that's the result. Okay, yeah, now we all want to look at TXA transaction. So we should be able to get the signature out of there now. Cool, we have a signature. Okay, so now, yeah, so we just put some hello world data in there. We should be able to submit it. I should have put some tags on this because I'm going to go all the way through this, and then we'll have to do another one to add some tag data. Well, that's fine. We will go back through it. Maybe I can do the core async stuff in the next one. That should make the whole round tripping a lot faster here. Right. So let's do this. Arweave transactions, get uploader. So def uploader. Are they dereffing anything? Oh, they are. Okay, fine. Dot transactions dot uploader dot get uploader. Interesting, and all it takes is just the transaction. Fascinating. And then, yeah, so I do then. Oof, this is ugly. Well, that's fine. First version ugly, we'll make a nicer version in a minute. So I really do want to get to the tag querying too, but def uploader, and oh yeah, I probably should explain this too. So I don't know if people are coming to this not knowing how to read closure some of this. I'm sorry, I'm glossing over some closure things, but this is worth explaining. This is the same as doing something like this. Def uploader X. It's just a shorthand for anonymous functions, and then you can refer to one arg using the %, or if you had multiple args, you could do %1, %2. But usually, once you're in this territory, you're probably better off naming them. So I very seldom ever do that, but for one argument version, it's pretty handy. Okay, so now. Transactions of undefined, really? Oh, no, because I still did need the... Uh-oh. Must provide data when resuming. Really? Oh. Of course. It's because I called it the wrong thing. Okay. So now we have our uploader. Yeah, so let me look at the uploader. And I would expect, yes, okay, yeah. So we have some activity here. Don't think it's actually started uploading yet. So we can do a loop and uploader is complete. So when not dot is complete, oops, uploader, okay, not is complete uploader. Okay, so here is a case where we can actually pull in a little of our core async. So core async, really, it's not worth going into exactly what's going on here, but it's basically a way to write. It gives you a mechanism that's similar to await in JavaScript, because there's no direct way to access await from ClojureScript, unfortunately. It kind of predates, ClojureScript's asynchronous stuff predates await, and but you can interact with promises in pretty convenient and similar ways using core async. And that reminds me, I should pull in, that's the wrong level to put this, yeah. Do this, loop. All right, so I'll use shorthand here in just a second to make this a little nicer. So put our go in loop, and inside here, we're gonna do when not is complete, and upload chunk. And here we can do a little promise deref, which is basically, you can just think about it as a wait. It's not quite the same, but close enough. Uploader the upload chunk. Dot upload chunk. Uploader. All right. So in theory, oops. Accidentally navigated to some documentation there. Okay, so in theory, this should upload our thing. Let's find out. Uh-oh. Unhandled. What's it saying here? Did we already upload it, I wonder? No, but this would have said it didn't upload. Let's go see what's happening in our get price. Quantity. What did we miss? We created a transaction. Oh, you could do a post too. Let's try that. Transactions.post. Arweave. Okay, so we should be able to do .transactions post, and then txa. Let's see what this says to us. There we go. So I wonder what happened with our uploader. So let's see. Signature. Yeah, so let's see. We should be able to do Arweave. I just want to retrieve that. Going back to the cursed page here that will take forever. Get transaction by ID. Yeah, okay, it's just TXID. Okay, so HTTP localhost 1984 TX. Grab our transaction ID here. Oops. Forget to put the slash. Input the slash. Okay, okay. This is cool. So we've submitted a transaction to ArLocal. It's gone in there. We've retrieved the transaction metadata. And did I close the? I did. Okay, so let's see. I don't know status. How much of status not found? I'm not sure how much of this. Let's see, the content type will default to, so the endpoint will return browser renderable. Yeah, let's see, does that work? Let me try. So one thing about ArLocal, again, it's my first time using it, so I believe you have to tell it. So after, let's see, sending a new transaction is done with the default way. Posted after a transaction is sent. To confirm your transaction, you need to mine. So let's do that. It's possible it doesn't. Okay, cool. So let's look at blocks. Get block by ID hash. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, block hash So we should be able to get that block. I assume, I don't know. Does it not implement that? Interesting. Or did do I need to have a plural there? Ah, maybe it doesn't implement retrieving the blocks. I could go look at the source code, but doesn't seem worth it right now. Okay, let's try this again. Status, not found. What about our data? Not found. Interesting. Okay, let's go back and look at the ArLocal. Can I just do data? Not found. And I'm getting that path right. Am I not? Get transaction data. ID, data, extension. Okay, let's go back here. It's possible it doesn't implement this. Saying new transaction is done, like with the default gateway. Mine, you can do this programmatically. Let me sanity check too, just make sure. So if I were to go do this, so http arweave.net/tx. I want to do a sanity check and make sure. Oh, fine. HTTPS. Okay. And data. Interesting. Well, let's see. Quantity 0. Data size 289. Might not be any data in that. Anyway, it's not giving me a 404. Just do something that should not be there. Bad gateway. Cool. What about one of these other ones? What's this application? Oh, here we go. Who knows what this is, but we'll just we'll grab this one. So this should give us some JSON back. Just sanity checking, making sure I'm actually making the right HTTP calls here. There we go. Yeah. So I am basically doing the right thing. Fascinating. Okay, so against the local host here, data size 12, and if I do text data, oops, a little too far back there. Data.txt. Okay, it might not be implemented. Let's go look at, that'd be a weird thing to not implement though. So let's see, features, extremely fast compared to blah, blah, blah. Test transactions, smart wave contracts, GraphQL requests, NFT deployment, and more. No, I must be doing something wrong. Because there's no way that they could implement this. Let's look at the data. data route. If not metadata. Okay, try content type. I wonder if we need to put a content type on it for it to work with ArLocal. That could be. Let's go back and look at our transaction. Content type. Well, let's try this. Yeah, okay, so I can't repost the same transaction. So we'll just go through again. So we'll create the transaction, and we'll need to add some tags to it. Tags, tags, tags. Add tag. Okay, let's do that. So I'm just totally smashing things here in the REPL. Just overriding what I did before. Okay. So this guy is now this transaction. So let's do add tag content type. Oh, I'm getting JavaScript into my closure script again. I'm trying to wrap up because I neglected to mention it here at the beginning, but there is another, I think, Open Web Foundry. So I don't like to run over those. So I might actually go to it. We'll see. So add transaction, nope, TXA, and whatever. We'll just do text slash HTML. Boom, do it. Okay, sign it. And then we'll go down to post. Okay, what do we got? Create a new transaction, mine. Got another block. And the ID. All right, let's see what we got this time. Looks promising. Data.html. Not found. Oh, come on. Interesting. I wonder what I'm doing wrong. This could be something very root. Reward, data size. Could be something very simple. Okay, well, let's go look at the ArLocal data route. If not, data DB, new data B, new transaction DB, path. Let's see, metadata, get by ID. If not metadata, metadata tags. See, it did get the right tag, right? I believe so. Content type, text HTML. I actually should do okay without the content type. Find one. I actually wonder if I wonder a little bit if it's not getting the data uploaded. Although it seems like where does the metadata DB get by ID? Data route regex. Do we have a app? Head get data route regex. Oh, is that I wonder. I wonder if I'm using a deprecated. Let's try. I have an idea. So I'm going to wrap up here in a second. Let me try interacting with this. It could be that that's not a route I should be using. So let's try to do it from here. Yeah, let's try this. So dot. So let's see. What's our transaction? This guy. Dot transactions dot get. So do that on the Arweave object and yeah, let's see what that does. Yeah. Okay, so let's do. Interesting. So let's go look over here. What is it? Okay. Yeah, I think probably the route I'm using is not what you're supposed to do these days. That might be like a more of a deprecated part of the API. So it's just doing, let's try this. Yeah, let's do what they're doing here. So curl HTTP. Oh, no, we'll go back to, yeah, no. HTTP, yeah, that one. Okay, so that doesn't give me anything. Let me do that. Hello world. Okay, cool. Is that part of, is that in the API documentation? I think not. Interesting. Okay, well, I learned something about Arweave. I think that that route is probably, well, I'll just say right here we're at 11 my time, 12 Eastern, so the Open Web Foundry will start right now. I want to do a little digging because now I'm a little curious where that route is implemented in general, because I I think it's possible it's not implemented in the Arweave node. So I want to poke around. So if, as usual, if you're building on top of Arweave and you want to, get connections in the ecosystem, I would recommend the Open Web Foundry. Actually, let me double check and make sure that that's happening too before I. Yeah, so the community spotlight is happening right now. This is people demoing their projects, and then you can interact with them afterwards. So definitely do go to that because it's not something you can catch up on later. But I want to do a little digging here. So I apologize for not getting around to querying GraphQL. Hopefully I'll demonstrate that next time. But I think we demonstrated some interesting stuff here in that I got ArLocal running, posted some data to it, sort of meandered through the Arweave routes and discovered that the TX data path, I think, may be sort of a deprecated thing at this point. I think I've also seen some stuff on Discord about that, but just hadn't hit it yet myself. So that's not the way you query stuff on ArLocal, and probably not the recommended way in general. I think that this route is probably implemented as a gateway capability, but I'm going to dig into that here in just a second and try to figure that out because I'm curious. But yeah, go to Open Web Foundry if that's interesting, and you can catch up with this on the video if you want to. Okay, so yeah, let me dig into that. I'm just curious. So I've got the Arweave code here. Apps. Oops, wrong directory. Apps, Arweave, source. Forget which file that's in. Middleware. No, wouldn't be middleware. Server. Where do I search for data slash? That's the client. That's the middleware. Oh, this might be it. Yeah, okay. Let's see. So, okay. TX is data implemented here. TX hash data, yeah. So data is implemented as part of the Arweave server. Chunk. TX offset. Unsigned TX, price peers, price, wallet list, wallet, block. Oh, wow, is that even in the documentation? Oh, it is, yeah, okay. Good transaction field. Wonder, okay, so now I'm curious. What I'm noticing here is you can, I didn't realize you could do that. You can get the fields off a transaction. So can I do, it's probably not implemented. Oh, wrong one. I bet. I bet that is not implemented. So, yeah, that's probably not implemented. That's fine. ArLocal may actually be useful in pushing you away from stuff you shouldn't be using. I think it's possible. Get TX status. Okay. TX file name. Okay, now we're down into, yeah, we're down into the implementations of a bunch of things. Okay, let me go back up here. Info block. Yeah, I think that's probably implemented in the gateway. Let's go find out. So, okay, github.com Arweave. Yeah, so this is the Arweave team's GitHub organization here. In here, of course, you can find Arweave. Vartex is the new gateway implementation they've been working on a lot. uh, wow, that's interesting. Okay, I'm getting distracted by seeing what they're doing. Okay, so source route, data route. Okay. Um, wow, this is kind of a mess. I mean, no slight on them. This is really actively under construction here, but okay, here we go. Proxy get. Okay, so this looks to me proxy get route. So that's route, proxy, route. Okay, let's look at that route. So what is this going to do? Grab node, request original URI, stream, get URI. That's not quite what I was expecting. This almost implies to me that it is hitting. So I'm going to guess, let's see, grab node, query. I'm going to guess that this is sending to a group of Arweave nodes. I guess we could go check that out. Query, node query. Yeah, so this is, yeah. Why? So if anyone on the Arweave team is listening, you know, this is a lot of fancy logic that's being baked into the gateway. I would think that load balancers should be able to do this stuff for you. But I don't know, maybe the idea here is to put as much logic in the gateway as you can, so it's more of a standalone thing. But this seems to me like, I don't know, it worries me seeing this fancy logic for determining how to route traffic to nodes when I'm pretty sure that things like HA proxy or Nginx already have fairly sophisticated logic of this kind that you could use. And that's one of the big advantages of HTTP. But again, I don't know the full context here, so just in case anyone is watching who might be working on this. But yeah, that does. So that answers the question of route, data route. Oops. That's proxy route. So that answers the question of what it is doing in terms of request original URI. But that confuses me because I did not think, maybe I missed a route. So hash, maybe there is a route at the top level. Get, oh yeah, it is here. It is here. So somehow I missed this. Handle get, oh. If you are given a hash with no specifier block, assume that the user is requesting data from the TX associated with the hash. Optionally allow a file extension. Gotcha. So it does, okay, interesting. So, okay, that answers this question. So the Arweave nodes themselves do actually implement this endpoint, and then they stream, the gateway streams from this one. So I guess this must be, just using the TX hash, that must be the preferred, or maybe ARLocal, keep saying ARLocal, I think makes more sense to me. But anyway, maybe ARLocal just implements this non-prefixed route because that's what the Arweave client does. I'm not sure if there's any reason beyond that to prefer this one. Okay, interesting, fun. Let's be looking into the Arweave codebase here. I find that I think it makes sense in a lot of ways, but the split of what's implemented in the Arweave nodes versus the gateways can get a little bit confusing sometimes. And yeah, I almost feel like some of that stuff that the gateways are doing, like, feels to me like you could just have a load balancer itself do that portion. Like, why have the gateway be the load balancer? Why not just hit a load balancer directly? Well, interesting ideas for my own gateway implementation at some point. Okay, I'll wrap up here. You stuck around for my spelunking here. Thanks, and felt like the dive into ArLocal was a little less smooth than I would have hoped, but you know, you get to see the real thing here. I'm just exploring it at the same time as everyone else. So, I'm not exactly sure. You know, usually I come up with an idea of what I'll do next week, and by the time I get there, it's actually I feel like something else is appropriate. So my thought right now is I would like to. Hopefully, I'll at least show this next time. But this was just really messy REPL exploration, which I think is a great way to kind of work through things. But what we could do here is clean this up a lot with some core async logic. And I think that would make this a lot nicer. You know, this is very this whole thing is just very hackish. You know, but that's fine for REPL interaction. But you could do more of this kind of thing where you're taking the async code and making it synchronous in a JavaScript await style, except using core async instead of JavaScript await. And ultimately, that's what the code is going to look like. The code that I actually implement in here. So yeah, it's possible I'll do that next time, but in all likelihood I'll have thought of something else that I think is better fits with my own schedule. But if I implement that in the meantime, I'll show it. And by the way, referencing back to a previous stream, if anyone's watching multiple, I mentioned doc-opt. I actually still haven't gotten to implementing doc-opt, but I think that might come in the next week or so. A big focus this last week for me was automating a release process, because I think one of the big challenges for this thing, I've mentioned this a few times, but I think one of the big challenges is really just keeping everyone up to date and making sure people are aware of releases and have a really easy update path. So I automated the creation of new releases, and I haven't hooked this part up yet, but ultimately there's going to be
notifications to happen, all automated, with change logs going into Discord and email, so that anyone who's using this thing um, will know right away when something new comes out and they need to update. Now that that's done, I can get back to focusing on polishing the interface that people use, and DocOpt is part of that. So yeah, rambling a bit here at the end, but that's the stream for today. Thanks for watching the video or attending right now if you were on the stream. Talk to you next week.